Hi everyone. For this problem, I'll show you how to multiply a monomial with a polynomial. So here's your monomial, negative 3x. And we all know that this is a binomial, 2x squared minus 5. So what we want to do here is use the distributive property. Take that negative 3x, that whole thing, and multiply that with the 2x squared and then take that again and multiply that with the negative 5. Okay, so the first one, negative 3x times 2x squared, multiply out the coefficients, which are the negative 3 and the 2, so you'll get negative 6. And then x times x squared, we all know from the last topic or last unit, it's x to the third, right? Because there's a 1 here. Alright, you do the same thing for the other one. Negative 3 times the negative 3x times the negative 5. You have a negative times a negative, so that results in a positive. And negative 3 times negative 5 gives you 15. 15 what? 15x. Okay, so now we have negative 6x cubed plus 15x. And that's after you multiply this negative 3x with this binomial. Alright, now let's take a look at this one here. We have this monomial, the x squared, and we have this polynomial, which is 6x to the fourth minus 5x to the third plus 2x minus 3. Again, we want to distribute this x squared into each term inside the parentheses. Right? So the first one will give you 6x to the 6. Since we're multiplying powers, we add the exponents, right? The 2 and the 4. You add them and you get 6. Okay, the next one is we have the x squared, multiply that with the negative 5x cubed. That will give us negative 5x to the fifth, right? Because you're multiplying that monomial x squared with this negative 5x cubed, and you add the exponents, the 2 and the 3. You get that 5 here. Now we're going to take a look at the next one. We have to multiply this again with the positive 2x, so that'll give us positive 2x cubed, because there's a 1 here. And lastly, let's go with this color here. We have the x squared times the negative 3. That'll give us negative 3x squared. Okay, so this is our final answer here. And we're happy. For the next problem, we need to know what a GCF is. Alright, so take a moment and see if you can guess what GCF stands for. Okay, if you guessed the greatest common factor, then you're right. GCF stands for the greatest common factor. So if you have two numbers, let's say you have 8 and 12. And the GCF between these two numbers is 4. And that's because it's the biggest number that can go into 8 and 12 evenly without any remainders. Okay, so take a look at this binomial here, 8x plus 4. And let's think of what is the GCF for 8x and 4. Well, if you think about it, the biggest number that can go into 8x and 4 is 4 itself. Alright, so that's the GCF. Now, once you know the GCF, you can actually use that to do the distributive property backwards. Right? We can pull out the 4, and what's left over inside the parentheses is the 2x right? Because 4 times 2x will give you the original 8x, and then the plus 1, because 4 times 1 will give you the original 4. So essentially, we just factored out the 4 from the original 8x plus 4 binomial. Alright, let's take a look at this one. We have 10x squared plus 5x. So what can we pull out from the binomial? A common factor. Well, we know that the 5 goes into both the 10x squared and the 5x, so we can pull out the 5. And we can also pull out the x, since there's an x for the 10x squared and there's an x for the 5x. Now what's left over is the 2x, right? Because 5x times 2x will give us the 10x squared, and a 1, because 5x times the 1 will give us the original 5x. So this is how we factored out the original binomial. And these two are equivalent. Okay, we're down to the last problem here. So now we have this trinomial, which is 21x cubed plus 14x squared plus 7x. Again, we're thinking of the greatest common factor. And here we have a 7 that can go into the 21, the 14, and the 7. So we can pull that out. And we also have an x that goes into the x cubed evenly, the x squared, and the x itself. So the GCF is the 7x. So we can pull that out. And now what's left over inside the parentheses, we have the 3x squared, right? Because if you multiply the 7x with the 3x squared, you get the original 21x cubed. And then we have a 2x, right? Because 7x, times 2x gives you the 14x squared, and then we have a plus 1. Okay? So now we can check our answer. If we were to distribute this 7x into each term inside the parentheses, we'll get the original, right? We can do it right here. We get 21x cubed plus 14x squared plus the 7x. So these two are equal to each other. Okay, and we're done, and we're happy.